Hello, can you please tell me your name and explain what Woodford investment you went into? Thank you.
Oh, good morning. My name's Bryan Hall. My wife and I both invested in ISAs in the LF Woodford Income Fund when it opened in 2014.
Thank you. And why is it that you've agreed to have this interview with me and to consent for it to be put out there on social media and so on?
Well, I feel that my wife and I, and probably thousands of other small investors, have been misled really by what happened. We invested in there because we were um, approaching our retirement, so we were looking for income. And Woodford was recommended by Hargreaves Lansdown, and basically we thought it was going to be a fairly safe bet because they'd be investing in decent sized companies who are paying dividends, which is what we were looking for.
Thank you, Brian. And if I may ask, who is your MP, and would you be happy for us to send him or her a link to the recording of this interview?
Yeah, certainly. It's Damien Green, Ashford constituency in Kent.
Thanks, Brian. So you've touched on this already, but why did you choose to invest in a Woodford fund?
Well, I've been using Hargreaves Lansdown for my SIP and some ISAs, and my wife had been using it for ISAs. And we looked for income, and essentially it was in the Wealth 50 fund, which Hargreaves Lansdown had indicated might be a good investment. I'd heard of Woodford before. He had a good reputation, but I know that doesn't always stack up. What goes on before doesn't mean it's going to happen again. But we felt fairly safe. So we invested thousands, not tens of thousands, into the ISAs. And we thought, well, it's going to be providing an income for when we retired.
Thank you. You've actually asked this question. You've answered this question already, but I'll ask it just for the record. So, did you use an investment platform, and if so, which one?
Yeah, we're with Hargreaves Lansdown.
The next question is very important. When you invested, what, if anything, was your understanding of your statutory rights and protections through the Financial Ombudsman Service and the Financial Services Compensation Scheme?
Well, I was aware of the Financial Services Compensation Scheme, but really I didn't think about it in relation to this investment because, we were using a decent institution in terms of investing through, i.e. Hargreaves Lansdown, and we were investing in an income fund, which, it wasn't a speculative individual share purchase. It was a fund being managed by someone who supposedly had a good reputation, and you think that it's going to be okay, maybe not spectacular, but an income on the investment that we put in. And what it turned out to be was later on, it seemed to go to illiquid funding, which is just ridiculous. So, we were looking for income. In the end, we didn't get it.
Understood. Overall, what do you think you would get back in terms of pence in the pound through the proposed scheme of arrangement? And how much do you think you could get back through a successful Financial Ombudsman Service claim?
Well, I think we would get back a fairly small proportion, maybe 10 to 15% through the scheme of arrangement. Unfortunately, I also went into a relationship with a lawyer, so they're going to take 30% because they would consider this to be a win. I'm assuming, I haven't heard from them, but that's what I think they will say. So I'm going to be getting a small proportion of what I think would have been available had this been handled in a different way by the FCA, and maybe use the Financial Services Compensation Scheme. So I think that the small investor has been stitched up basically by the larger institutions, accountants and lawyers, which isn't my understanding of what the FCA was supposed to be about. I mean, they obviously need to have a stable financial service industry, but if things go wrong, they should be there to protect the consumer. especially when working through established financial services institutions.
Understood. Thank you very much, Brian. Now, without any need to mention any specific amounts, does the 85,000 FSCS limit apply to you? Are you above or below that?
No, we're both below that.
Okay.
So that isn't relevant to us.
Overall, how would you say the Woodford scandal has impacted you?
I think the main thing is that our trust in financial services has been impacted. I unfortunately had a problem with Equitable Life over 20 years ago. And as a result of that, I withdrew, if you like, from investing in my pension for a number of years because I just didn't trust the financial services industry. And that's been shown to be fairly consistent. There's the PPI scam. There's the big crash in 2008, which was full of, I can't remember the term now, but junk bonds and stuff like that, full of unrealistic valuations of property in the States and probably over here as well. So the most important thing that I think has to come out of this is that the government, the FCA, financial institutions have got to somehow help the general public and consumers to trust in them again. So I'm distrustful of them and very skeptical about recommendations, even if someone's got a great record.
Thank you, Brian. So, what do you think about the way the FCA has handled matters?
Well, I initially wrote to them in 2021 complaining that about Link, because I think that they weren't being regulated properly. As a result of that, I got £75 for the delay in them responding to me. I don't know where that came from, but overall, I think that they're looking at helping the institutions, the lawyers, and the accountants rather than looking after the interests of the consumers. So I think that I think it's a stitch up, really. I voted no. I'm disappointed that the vote went against, but can't win them all.
Brian, so the FCA has made reference to 77p in the pound, and the press has picked up on that.
Yeah.
What do you think about the 77p in the pound issue?
Well, I'm trying to understand whether that's what I've got back. I haven't calculated it in terms of going through all the income and various things, but it seems to be an unrealistically high figure, in my opinion. I think the figure is lower, and I think that the whole thing has been mishandled because I think as a result maybe of the Kent County Council withdrawing 200 and something million, it spooked Link, and they then sort of put the blot on what was going on with Woodford. Now, had they actually said, well, look, we need you to actually get back to what it was supposed to be, an income fund rather than a speculative illiquid fund, then maybe we wouldn't be in this position and we might have been able to sort it out over the last few years. But I think we've been, misled and ignored, really, as small investors.
The next question is about the scheme of arrangement generally. You've already touched on it. Is there anything in addition you'd like to say about the scheme of arrangement?
Well, I'm not very happy about the way it was handled. I mean, the vote, it just seemed as though the FCA and Link were trying to make the best of a bad job rather than actually doing what they should have done, which would have put this through the FSCS. So the scheme of arrangement seems to be it's offering probably about 25% of what the whole compensation should be, and it just seemed a bit of a quick and dirty result or solution for the FCA and Link. And the vote itself, I understand the need to be robust in terms of making sure that people have the shares or have the funds, so they need to prove that. But it just seemed a bit messy in terms of the way the vote was handled. And obviously, as I voted no, I'm disappointed with the result.
We have a question about the voting process. Is there anything else you'd like to add in relation to the voting process?
Um, Not really. I mean, I seem to have got some information through from Hargreaves Lansdown saying that there was the vote in place, and how to access the information. So I guess I'm, I was able to vote. I went through the forms. It wasn't straightforward, in my opinion, but I think with careful reading, you can get through and vote up. So not really. I mean, it's just a frustration.
And the final question, Brian, is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap this conversation up?
Well, I've touched on it before, but I think the crux of the matter is confidence in financial services and the institutions that surround them. And at the moment, I don't feel confident that the financial service industry is as honest as it should be. It isn't as well regulated as it should be. It's taken far too long for this to come through. It's over 3.5 years since this started. Um, the FCA have got a tough job. I understand that, but I don't think that they're doing enough to protect the small consumer.
Mr. Brian Hall, thank you very much indeed for your time today and for sharing your thoughts. We'll get this recording out there, including to your MP, ASAP. Brian, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.